The purple sky of Valara Prime turned dark as massive shadows passed overhead. Ambassador Carroll stood at the viewing deck of the council tower, watching enemy ships move like hungry beasts across the horizon. His forearms trembled as he gripped the communication device tighter than ever before. "They gave us 10 solar cycles," Carroll whispered to himself, his voice barely audible in the empty chamber. The Hraketh Empire had sent their ultimatum 3 cycles ago. Surrender or die. Those were the only choices they offered to peaceful species across the galaxy. Behind him, the great doors opened with a soft hiss. Captain Vex entered the chamber, his blue skin darker than usual with worry. His crystalline eyes reflected the fear that gripped their entire civilization. "Ambassador, the outer colonies are reporting Hraketh scout ships," Vex said, his voice steady despite the terror in his heart. "They are testing our defenses? Our energy shields held for now, but their ships are bigger than our intelligence reports suggested." Carroll turned away from the window. His people had always solved the problems with words and wisdom. The Valerians were known across 17 star systems as the Great Peacemakers. When species fought over territory or resources, they called the Valerians to help find solutions. But words meant nothing to the Hraketh Empire. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" Carroll asked, though he already knew the answer would crush his hopes. 47 defense vessels, sir. All equipped with our best energy weapons and shield generators." Vex paused, his shoulders dropping. "The Hraketh fleet has over 3,000 ships. Our scouts confirmed the numbers before their ships were destroyed." The silence in the chamber felt heavy like the weight of their coming doom. Carroll had seen the reports from other worlds that faced the Hraketh. The Empire left nothing behind, but empty planets and floating debris. They did not take prisoners. They did not accept surrender once the fighting began. "There must be someone who can help us," Carroll said, more to himself than to Vex. "The galaxy cannot simply watch as the Hraketh destroy every peaceful civilization." Vex activated his wrist device and projected a holographic map of the local star systems. Red dots marked conquered territories. Yellow dots showed systems under threat. Only a few green dots remained, representing free worlds like theirs. "Most species are either too far away or too weak to face the Hraketh," Vex explained. "The Zentari Republic has strong fleets, but they signed a non-aggression pact with the Empire last year. The Crystal Collective offered to take refugees, but they cannot fight a war." Carroll studied the map carefully. His eyes stopped at a small blue dot on the edge of known space. The label reads Sol System, Human Territory. Below it, another word made his skin grow cold. Quarantine Zone, Deathworld. Species. "What do you know about the humans?" Carroll asked. Vex's expression changed to one of uncertainty mixed with fear. "Very little, sir. Most species avoid contact with them. There are stories, but nobody knows what is true and what is legend." "Tell me the stories," Vex hesitated before speaking. "They say humans come from a world so dangerous that it created the most violent species in the galaxy. Their planet has extreme weather, deadly creatures, and natural disasters that would kill most beings instantly. The stories claim that humans are nearly impossible to kill and that they enjoy fighting." Carroll felt a chill run through his body. "Are they as bad as the Hraketh?" "No, sir. The stories say humans only fight when threatened or when protecting others. Some tales speak of human ships helping trade vessels under attack by pirates. But the ships always leave quickly, and the humans never ask for payment or thanks." The chamber fell silent again as both Valerians considered this information. Outside, more Hraketh ships appeared in the sky. Time was running out faster than sand through an hourglass. "Do we have any way to contact them?" Carroll asked. Vex worked on his device for several minutes. "There is an old communication frequency used by traders who work near human space. But, sir, even if we send a message, why would they help us? What could we possibly offer beings who survived on a death world?" Carroll walked to the center of the chamber where a large communication console waited. His decision felt like jumping into an endless void, but staying meant certain death for billions of Valerians. Because sometimes the most dangerous beings understand the value of protecting the innocent, Carol said as he activated the console. Open a channel on all frequencies toward human space. The console hummed to life, sending signals across the vast emptiness between stars. Carol took a deep breath and began recording his message. This is Ambassador Carol of the Valerian Council, transmitting from Valara Prime in the Valerian system. We are a peaceful species facing complete destruction at the hands of the Hraketh Empire. They have given us 10 solar cycles to surrender or face total annihilation. He paused, looking out at the enemy ships that grew more numerous by the hour. We have 47 ships against their 3,000. We have always solved conflicts through diplomacy, but the Hraketh only understand violence. Our defense fleets are brave, but they are not warriors. They are scientists and explorers forced to carry weapons. Carol's voice grew stronger as he continued. We know humans are called Deathworlders. We know other species fear you. But we also know that you have helped others before, even when you gain nothing from it. We are not asking you to fight our war. We are asking you to help innocent beings who cannot help themselves. The message was almost complete, but Carol felt he needed to say more. If you cannot help, we understand. But if you can, if there is any honor among warriors, please remember that sometimes the weak need the strong to stand with them. This message will repeat for 7 cycles before our communications are likely destroyed. He ended the transmission and set it to repeat automatically. Vex looked at him with a mixture of respect and terror. What happens now? Vex asked. Now we prepare our people for either salvation or death, Carol replied. And we hope that somewhere in the darkness between stars, someone with the power to help actually cares enough to use it. 3 systems away, Admiral Blake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the human dreadnought Invictus. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of life support systems. His crew worked at their stations with the calm efficiency that came from years of training and experience. Sir, we are receiving a distress signal from the Valerian system, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. The message is repeating on multiple frequencies. Morrison's expression remained neutral as he listened to the desperate plea from Ambassador Carol around him. His officers exchanged glances but remained silent. They had all heard similar messages before from species facing extinction. Analysis, Mr. Webb, Morrison said to his science officer. Dr. Marcus Webb consulted his datapad. The Valerians are a peaceful species known for diplomatic solutions to conflicts. They have no history of aggression or territorial expansion. The Hraketh Empire has destroyed 17 systems in the past 5 years, showing no mercy to civilians. Morrison stood and walked to the main view screen, which showed the endless stars ahead of them. His reflection stared back at him, showing a face marked by years of difficult decisions. Contact Earth Command, he ordered. Tell them we have a situation that may require fleet deployment. The communications officer worked quickly to establish the connection. Within minutes, Fleet Commander Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen, her expression serious as always. Blake, what is the situation? Vasquez asked. Morrison played the Valerian message for her. As the desperate words filled the bridge, he watched her face for any sign of her decision. How long do we have? She asked. 7 cycles remaining, ma'am. That gives us 4 cycles to reach their system if we leave immediately. Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. The weight of her decision would determine the fate of billions of beings she had never met. Prep the war fleet, Admiral. The Deathworlders are going to answer their call. Admiral Morrison stood before the massive display screen in the war room deep inside the Invictus. The screen showed a tactical view of human space, with dozens of blue dots representing ships and stations scattered across multiple star systems. Each dot held the power to change the course of galactic history. Show me what we have available. Morrison commanded. Fleet Tactical Officer Commander Jake Sullivan stepped forward, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The display zoomed out to show the full extent of human military assets hidden throughout the Sol system and nearby colonies. Sir, we have the 3rd Battle Fleet currently on patrol near the outer colonies. That gives us 27 heavy cruisers, 40 destroyers, and 12 dreadnoughts including the Invictus. The 7th Defense Fleet is stationed around Earth, with another 35 ships of various classes. Morrison nodded, but his expression remained serious. The numbers sounded impressive, but he knew they would be facing an enemy with overwhelming numerical superiority. What about the Ghost Fleet? Morrison asked quietly. Sullivan hesitated before answering. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a collection of stealth ships designed for missions that officially never happened. All 15 Ghost Fleet vessels are operational, sir. Captain Rex Hawthorne of the Shadow's Edge confirms his ships can be ready for deployment within 6 hours. The war room doors opened with a soft hiss, and Dr. Marcus Webb entered carrying a datapad filled with intelligence reports. His face showed the exhaustion of someone who had been working without sleep to gather crucial information. Admiral, I have the analysis you requested on both the Valerians and the Hraketh Empire, Webb said, activating his own holographic display. The screen now showed images of Valerian cities, beautiful structures of crystal and light that seemed to grow from the landscape like living art. The beings themselves looked fragile, with thin limbs and large eyes that spoke of intelligence rather than physical strength. The Valerians are exactly what their message suggested, Webb began. A peaceful species that has spent thousands of years developing science, art, and diplomacy. Their technology is actually superior to ours in many areas, particularly energy manipulation and faster-than-light communication, but they have no tradition of warfare. Morrison studied the images carefully. What about their claim that diplomacy does not work with the Hraketh? Webb's expression darkened as he switched to images of Hraketh warriors and their ships. The beings looked like nightmares made real, with thick armor-like skin, multiple arms ending in claws, and eyes that seemed to burn with constant anger. The Hraketh are a military culture that has existed for over 10,000 years. They believe that strength is the only virtue that matters and that weak species deserve to be destroyed. They have never accepted surrender once a battle begins, and they take no prisoners. Commander Sullivan pulled up tactical data on Hraketh ships. Their vessels are built like floating fortresses, sir. Heavy armor, massive weapons, designed to overwhelm enemies through sheer firepower. They are not subtle, but they are effective. Morrison walked to the center of the room, his mind processing all the information. The weight of command meant that his decisions would determine not just the fate of his own people, but the survival of an entire civilization. Doctor, why do other species fear humans so much? Morrison asked. What makes us different from peaceful? Species like the Valerians? Webb smiled grimly. Earth, sir. Our world tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, deadly predators, diseases that could wipe out entire populations. Most species evolved on worlds that supported life easily. We evolved on a world that hated us. The display changed to show images of Earth, but not the beautiful blue world that poets wrote about. Instead, it showed hurricanes that could level, cities, earthquakes that could split continents, and creatures that had turned killing into an art form. Every human alive today carries the genetic memory of countless ancestors who survived by being smarter, tougher, and more adaptable than anything that wanted to eat them, Webb continued. We learned to hunt in packs, to use tools as weapons, to never give up even when facing impossible odds. Morrison nodded slowly. And that is why the Hraketh will not expect us to fight the way we do. Exactly, sir. They are used to fighting other military cultures that follow predictable patterns. They expect formations, direct assaults, honor-based combat. They have never faced an enemy that fights like Earth's apex predators. The communication system activated and the image of Fleet Commander Vasquez appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Morrison could see the organized chaos of Earth Command as officers prepared for the largest military deployment in recent human history. Blake, the authorization has come through from the Colonial Council, Vasquez said. You have full permission to deploy whatever forces you deem necessary to assist the Valerians. Morrison felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. Command decisions were never easy, but they were especially difficult when innocent lives hung in the balance. Thank you, ma'am. What is the status of fleet deployment? The 3rd Battle Fleet is already moving to rendezvous with your position. The Ghost Fleet has departed under stealth protocols. Captain Hawthorne will coordinate with you once you reach Valerian space. Morrison glanced at Sullivan, who was already calculating jump coordinates and travel times. We can reach the Valerian system in 3.5 cycles if we push the engines hard, sir, Sullivan reported. That gives us half a cycle to assess the situation before the Hraketh deadline expires. Vasquez leaned forward in her chair, her expression serious. Blake, I want you to understand something. The galaxy is watching this. If we succeed, every peaceful species will know that humans stand with those who cannot protect themselves. If we fail, the Hraketh will be unstoppable. Understood, Nam? We will not fail. The communication ended, leaving Morrison alone with his officers in the war room. The massive display now showed their intended route to Valerian space, a journey through hyperspace that would take them far from the safety of human territory. Sir, what are our rules of engagement? Sullivan asked. Morrison was quiet for a long moment before answering. The Hraketh have made their choice to be destroyers. We will give them one chance to withdraw peacefully. If they refuse, we show them why humans are called Deathworlders. Commander Lisa Park's voice came over the ship's communication system. Admiral, we are receiving acknowledgement signals from the entire 3rd Battle Fleet. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Morrison walked to his command chair and activated the ship-wide communication system. Throughout the Invictus and the other ships of the fleet, humans prepared themselves for what might be their final mission. This is Admiral Morrison to all. Ships, in 3 hours we will jump to hyperspace bound for the Valerian system. We go to answer a call for help from beings who have never harmed anyone. We go to face an enemy that has shown no mercy to the innocent. He paused, thinking about the weight of his next words. The Hraketh Empire believes that strength comes from destroying the weak. Today, we will show them that true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The death world of Earth made us into warriors, but our humanity makes us protectors. Throughout the fleet, human voices responded with quiet determination. They understood the odds they faced. They understood that many of them might not return home, but they also understood that some things were worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. All ships, prepare for a hyperspace jump. Let us go remind the galaxy why humans are feared by those who prey on the innocent. One by one, the great ships of humanity's war fleet vanished into hyperspace, carrying with them the hopes of a peaceful species and the promise that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, someone would answer when innocents called for help. Behind them, hidden monitoring stations throughout human space began tracking new signals. The word was spreading through underground networks that connected every inhabited system. The Deathworlders were moving to war, and the galaxy held its breath to see what would happen when Earth's children brought their full fury to bear against an empire built on cruelty and conquest. Captain Rex Hawthorne crouched in the shadow of an asteroid, watching the enemy fleet through his ship's advanced sensors. The shadow's edge was invisible to most detection systems, but the sheer size of what lay before him made his blood run cold. 3,000 Hraketh warships spread across space like a metal plague, each one larger than anything in the human fleet. "Control, this is Ghost Leader," Hawthorne whispered into his communication device. "I have visual confirmation of the enemy. Fleet, the intelligence reports were wrong. They have more ships than we thought." His tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, pointed to her display screen. "Sir, I count at least 4,000 vessels, including what appears to be a Planet Killer class ship in the center of their formation." Hawthorne activated his long-range cameras and focused on the massive vessel Kim had identified. The ship was easily 10 times larger than the biggest human dreadnought, its hull covered in weapon ports that could glass an entire continent with a single volley. "Control, the Hraketh have brought a world breaker to this fight. Repeat, they have a world breaker-class vessel among their forces. Admiral Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system from the approaching human fleet. Ghost Leader, can you confirm the status of Valerian defenses? Hawthorne adjusted his sensors to scan the inner system where the Valerian homeworld waited. What he saw made his heart sink further. Burning wrecks of Valerian ships drifted between the planets, and several of the outer colonies showed signs of bombardment. Sir, Valerian losses are heavy. I count maybe 20 ships still operational clustered around their homeworld. The outer colonies are taking fire from Raketh advance units. On Valara Prime, Ambassador Carroll stood in the emergency command center deep beneath the capital city. The chamber was filled with Valerian officers coordinating evacuations and trying to maintain what remained of their defense network. Every few minutes, the building shook as enemy fire struck the planetary shields. Captain Vex approached Carroll with a report that brought tears to the ambassador's crystalline eyes. Sir, we have lost contact with colonies 7, 12, and 15. Long-range sensors show no life signs. Carroll closed his eyes and tried to find strength in his despair. 3 colonies meant millions of Valerians were gone forever, their cities turned to ash by an enemy that cared nothing for mercy or honor. Any word from the humans? Carroll asked, though he was beginning to lose hope that help would arrive in time. Our deep space monitors detected hyperspace signatures 6 hours ago, but we cannot identify the ships until they drop back into normal space. The command center's main display activated, showing General Throck of the Raketh Empire. The alien's face was a nightmare of scars and burning eyes, his voice like grinding metal when he spoke. Valerian insects, your time grows short. We have demonstrated our power by cleansing 3 of your colonies. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Continue to resist, and we will ensure your species suffers for days before extinction. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in terrified silence. Carroll felt the weight of billions of lives pressing down on him like a mountain of grief. Suddenly, space near the edge of the Valerian system erupted with new hyperspace signatures. Ship after ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their hulls bearing the blue and white insignia of Earth. The human fleet had arrived. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Invictus, studying the tactical display that showed the full scope of the Raketh fleet. His officers worked quietly at their stations, each one understanding that they faced odds that would have made most species retreat immediately. Communications, open a channel to the Raketh flagship, Morrison ordered. Commander Lisa Parks. Fingers moved across her control panel. Channel open, sir. Morrison's image appeared on screens throughout the Raketh fleet, his calm expression a stark contrast to the fury that burned in alien eyes around him. I am Admiral Blake Morrison. Of the human colonial fleet, you have attacked innocent beings who pose no threat to your empire. I am offering you one opportunity to withdraw from this system peacefully. General Throke's laughter was like the sound of breaking bones. Humans, we have heard stories of your kind. Primitive Deathworlders who think they can frighten civilized beings with tales of your violent planet. You are outnumbered 4-1. Leave now or join the Valerians in death. Morrison's expression did not change, but those who knew him could see the cold fury building behind his eyes. General, you have made your choice. I hope your warriors are prepared for the consequences. The communication ended, and Morrison turned to address his bridge crew. All ships, battle stations, implement Hunter Protocol. Show them what Deathworlders do to predators who attack the innocent. Throughout the human fleet, ships began to move in patterns that defied traditional military doctrine. Instead of forming battle lines or defensive formations, they spread out like a pack of wolves, preparing to hunt prey much larger than themselves. Captain Jake Sullivan aboard the heavy cruiser Thunderstrike watched as Raketh ships began their assault. Massive energy beams and missile volleys filled space between the two fleets, but the humans did not respond with their own direct assault. Sir, they are firing everything they have at us, reported his weapons officer. But their targeting systems cannot lock onto our ships when we move like this. Sullivan smiled grimly as he watched his ship dance between enemy fire like a bird avoiding a storm. They are used to fighting species that stand still and trade shots. They have never faced an enemy that hunts. The first phase of the battle belonged to the humans. Using the asteroid field and gas giant gravity wells as cover, they struck at isolated Hraketh vessels with precision attacks before vanishing back into the cosmic terrain. Each strike was planned to cause maximum damage while avoiding direct confrontation with the main enemy fleet. Commander Diana Cross of the destroyer Phantom led her squadron in a daring attack on a group of Hraketh heavy cruisers. Her ships came screaming out of an asteroid shadow at full speed, fired everything they had, and disappeared again before the enemy could respond effectively. Control, Phantom Squadron, reporting 12 enemy vessels destroyed with no losses. Cross reported as her ships regrouped behind a small moon, but the Hraketh were not helpless prey. General Throck quickly adapted to human tactics, ordering his ships to form tighter formations and use their superior numbers to create overlapping fields of fire that made hit-and-run attacks more dangerous. The tide of battle began to shift when a squadron of human destroyers found themselves trapped in a crossfire between three groups of enemy ships. The lead destroyer, HMS Defiant, took heavy damage before it could escape, and two other ships were severely crippled. Admiral Morrison watched the tactical display with growing concern. His forces were inflicting heavy casualties on the enemy, but the Hraketh could afford to lose ships far better than the humans could. Sir, Ghost Fleet reports they have identified several high-value targets in the enemy formation, reported Commander Park. Captain Hawthorne requests permission to begin surgical strikes on command vessels. Morrison nodded. Permission granted. Tell Ghost Fleet to make every shot count. Hidden throughout the battle zone, 15 human stealth ships began their deadly work. Unlike the visible fleet that danced and struck like hunting wolves, the Ghost Fleet moved like deadly serpents, invisible until the moment they struck vital targets. Captain Hawthorne guided the Shadow's Edge through the chaotic battle, avoiding massive energy beams and missile explosions as he closed on a Hraketh command cruiser. His ship's experimental weapons could punch through enemy shields with precision that made traditional tactics obsolete. Target acquired, whispered his weapons officer, firing. The Hraketh command cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash, taking with it the coordination signals for an entire enemy battle group. Suddenly, 50 enemy ships found themselves operating without central command, their formation falling apart under continued human attacks, but General Throck had prepared for treachery and ambush. As human ships pressed their advantage against the confused enemy formations, massive hyperspace signatures appeared at the edge of the system. Sir, enemy reinforcements dropping out of hyperspace, Commander Park reported, her voice tight with concern. I count over 2,000 additional ships, including multiple Worldbreaker-class vessels. Morrison felt his heart sink as he watched the tactical display update with new enemy contacts. The odds had just shifted from nearly impossible to completely hopeless. General Throck's voice filled the communication channels with triumphant fury. Deathworlders, you fight well for primitives, but numbers always tell the true story. Surrender now, and I will grant you warriors' deaths. Continue this futile resistance, and I will ensure your homeworld burns slowly. Admiral Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Each one showed the same determination that had carried humanity through countless disasters on their hostile homeworld. They would not surrender, no matter the odds. All ships. This is Morrison. Prepare for Phase 2 of Hunter Protocol. We came here to protect the innocent, and we will complete our mission. Throughout the human fleet, ships began to glow with dangerous energy as they prepared weapons and systems that had never been tested in actual combat. The Deathworlders were about to show the galaxy what happened when Earth's children faced extinction with courage instead of fear. Admiral Morrison stared at the tactical display as 6,000 enemy ships formed a wall of destruction across space. The arrival of Hraketh reinforcements had turned a difficult battle into an impossible one, but his expression remained as calm as deep water before a storm. Commander Sullivan, implement Deathworld doctrine. Morrison ordered quietly, throughout the human fleet. The announcement sent chills through crews who had trained for this moment but hoped they would never face it. The Deathworld doctrine was humanity's most desperate strategy, designed for situations where conventional tactics meant certain death. Commander Jake Sullivan aboard the heavy cruiser Thunderstrike watched his tactical display change as human. Ships abandoned all pretense of traditional military formation. Instead of battle lines or defensive clusters, the fleet scattered like a pack of predators preparing to hunt something much larger than themselves. "All ships, you know your objectives," Sullivan broadcast to his squadron commanders. "We are not trying to win a battle anymore. We are trying to save innocent lives and make sure the enemy pays the highest possible price." Dr. Marcus Webb worked frantically at his science station aboard the Invictus, analyzing HFY's ship designs and communication patterns. His discoveries would determine whether humanity's sacrifice would mean anything. "Admiral, I have found their weakness," Webb announced suddenly. "The HFY command structure is completely centralized. Every ship in their fleet receives orders from a single command vessel in the center of their formation." Morrison moved to Webb's station and studied the data. "You are certain about this?" "Yes, sir. They are a military culture that values absolute obedience. Individual ship commanders have no authority to change tactics or retreat without direct orders from General Throck." Morrison felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. "If we can disable their command ship, their entire fleet will be paralyzed. For a short time, yes. But, sir, the command vessel is surrounded by their most powerful ships, including 3 Worldbreaker-class vessels. Getting close enough to attack it would be suicide." Morrison smiled grimly. "Doctor, we are humans from a death world. Suicide missions are what we do best." Across the battlefield, Captain Rex Hawthorne led the Ghost Fleet through the chaos of exploding ships and energy beams. His stealth vessels had become living nightmares for the HFY, appearing without warning to destroy command ships and disappear before enemy guns could target them. "Ghost Leader to all stealth units," Hawthorne transmitted on a secure channel. "New priority target identified. We are going after the big one." Lieutenant Sarah Kim checked her sensors and felt her blood turn cold. "Sir, the command ship is protected by over 300 vessels, including planet killers. Our stealth systems cannot hide us from that many sensors simultaneously." Hawthorne studied the tactical display and began forming a plan that violated every rule of safe military operation. "Then we do not hide. We use the visible fleet as a distraction and punch through their defenses while they are looking the wrong way." On the bridge of the Invictus, Admiral Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every human ship engaged in the desperate battle, carrying with it the weight of their shared heritage as survivors from Earth. "All ships, this is Morrison. The enemy believes superior numbers guarantee victory. They have never faced beings who evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day." Explosions lit up space around the human fleet as HFY weapons found their targets. Several destroyers were already gone, their crews lost in the service of protecting people they had never met. "Today we show the galaxy what Deathworlders do when innocent lives are threatened. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We hunt." Commander Diana Cross aboard the destroyer. Phantom led her damaged squadron in a seemingly suicidal charge toward a group of enemy battleships. Her ships were outnumbered 10-1, but they moved with the deadly grace of pack hunters closing in for the kill. "All ships, target their weapon systems," Cross ordered as enemy fire tore through her shields. "We do not need to destroy them. We just need to blind them long enough for Ghost Fleet to do their job." The Phantom shuddered under enemy fire, but her crew continued to work with the calm efficiency that marked human naval training. They had accepted that they might not survive this battle, but they were determined to make their sacrifice meaningful on Valara Prime. Ambassador Kirill watched the battle through his deep space sensors. The human fleet was outnumbered 6-1, but they were fighting like creatures possessed by the spirits of ancient gods. Sir, the humans are not trying to win, observed Captain Vex as he studied the tactical display. They are trying to create chaos in the enemy formation. Kirill nodded slowly. They are buying time for something. But what could they possibly hope to accomplish against such overwhelming odds? The answer came in the form of 15 shadows moving through the heart of the enemy fleet. The Ghost Fleet had used the visible battle as cover to penetrate deep into Freyketh space, their stealth systems strained to the breaking point by the need to avoid thousands of sensors. Captain Hawthorne felt sweat dripping down his face as the shadow's edge slipped between two massive enemy battleships. His ship was less than a kilometer from hulls that bristled with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. "Target acquired," whispered his weapons officer. "The command ship is directly ahead, range 5,000 meters. Hawthorne could see General Throke's flagship through his viewscreen, a massive vessel that served as the brain controlling the entire Freyketh fleet. If they could destroy it, the enemy would be blind and confused long enough for the human fleet to escape with the surviving Valerians. "All Ghost Fleet vessels, this is our moment," Hawthorne transmitted. "Fire everything you have and prepare for immediate withdrawal." 15 stealth ships opened fire simultaneously, their experimental weapons cutting through space like invisible blades. The Freyketh command ship's shields flared and died under the concentrated assault, its hull cracking open to expose the vital systems within, but General Throck was not defenseless. As alarms screamed throughout his flagship, he activated a weapon system that no human intelligence report had ever mentioned. The ship's hull opened like a flower, revealing a massive energy cannon that had been hidden in its core. "Deathworlders," Throck roared over all communication frequencies. "You want to see what real power looks like? Behold the Starkiller." The weapon fired, and space itself seemed to tear apart. The energy beam was so powerful that it created a temporary rift in reality, a wound in the fabric of existence that pulled everything nearby into its hungry maw. Two Ghost Fleet ships vanished instantly, consumed by forces that human science could barely comprehend. The remaining stealth vessels fled as fast as their engines could carry them, but the damage was done. The command ship had survived, and now General Throck knew exactly where his most dangerous enemies were hiding. Admiral Morrison watched in horror as the tactical display showed the loss of 2 irreplaceable stealth ships. The Ghost Fleet had failed to destroy the enemy command vessel, and now the Freyketh knew about humanity's most secret weapons. "Sir, the enemy is repositioning to hunt down our remaining stealth ships," reported Commander Park. "They are using some kind of exotic sensor system that can penetrate our stealth technology." Morrison felt the weight of command pressing down on him like the gravity of a collapsing star. His fleet was trapped, outnumbered, and facing weapons that defied understanding. But surrender was not an option when innocent lives hung in the balance. "All ships, prepare for Ragnarok Protocol," Morrison announced quietly throughout the human fleet. Crews stopped what they were doing and stared at their commanders in shock. Ragnarok Protocol was the final option, the last desperate gambit that no one expected to survive. "Commander," Sullivan felt his hands shake as he entered the authorization codes that would arm his ship's self-destruct system. "Sir, are you certain about this?" Morrison's voice was steady when he replied. "The Freyketh Empire has shown what happens to innocent species that cannot defend themselves. If we cannot save the Valerians, we can at least ensure that this fleet never threatens anyone else." Dr. Webb looked up from his science station with an expression of desperate hope. "Admiral, I may have found another option. The exotic energy readings from their Starkiller weapon are causing instabilities in local space. If we can overload our fusion cores at precisely the right moment, we might be able to create a cascade reaction that will tear their entire fleet apart." Morrison studied the data Webb had discovered. The plan was insane, requiring split-second timing and the sacrifice of every human ship in the fleet. But it offered something that simple self-destruction could not: the complete elimination of the Freyketh threat. "How long do we have to implement this plan?" Morrison asked. "The enemy is moving to surround us. Based on their current speed, we have maybe 10 minutes before they can bring all their weapons to bear." Morrison felt time slipping away like sand through his fingers. Every second meant more Valerian lives lost and fewer options for his own people. But he had not come this far to give up when victory was still possible. All ships, this is Morrison. New orders. We are going to ram the enemy flagship and overload our cores simultaneously. The explosion should be large enough to take most of their fleet with us. Throughout the human fleet, crews prepared for the final charge with the quiet determination that had carried their species through countless disasters. They understood that their sacrifice would save billions of innocent lives and send a message to any future aggressors that humanity would never allow the strong to prey on the weak. Commander Cross aboard the Phantom looked around her bridge. At faces she had served with for years. Her ship was already damaged, its hull cracked and systems failing, but her crew remained at their posts. "It has been an honor serving with all of you," Cross said quietly. "Today we show the galaxy what Earth's children do when evil threatens the innocent." General Throck watched the human fleet begin its final charge and felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. These creatures from the Deathworld were not behaving like any enemy he had ever faced. They showed no fear of death, no desire to preserve themselves when others needed protection. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead human vessel," Throck ordered. "Destroy them before they can reach us." Space erupted with weapons fire as thousands of Fraketh guns targeted the approaching human ships. The Invictus took hit after hit, its armor melting under the incredible heat of enemy energy beams, but Morrison held his course toward the enemy flagship. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, reported Commander Park as the ship shook around them. "Fusion core containment at 60% and falling." Morrison gripped his command chair as another massive explosion rocked the ship. "How long until we reach the target?" "3 minutes, sir. But I do not think we will survive that long." Suddenly, space around the Fraketh fleet began to ripple with new hyperspace signatures. Admiral Morrison felt his heart leap as he recognized the energy patterns of human ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. "Sir, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez aboard the Dreadnought Titan," came a voice over the communication system. "The 4th Battle Fleet has arrived with reinforcements." Morrison stared at the tactical display as 50 fresh human warships appeared in the system. But even with reinforcements, they were still outnumbered by more than 3 to 1. "Captain Rodriguez, you should not have come," Morrison said. "This is a suicide mission." Rodriguez's laughter filled the communication channel. "Admiral, we are humans from Earth. Every mission is a suicide mission until we make it home alive. All ships, implement Deathworld doctrine and show these aliens what happens when they threaten our friends." The battle exploded into chaos as fresh human ships joined the desperate fight. Captain Rodriguez led her squadron in a flanking attack. That caught the Fraketh by surprise, while the Ghost Fleet used the confusion to launch another assault on the enemy command ship. But General Throck had learned from the earlier attack. This time, he was ready when the stealth ships appeared. The Starkiller weapon fired again, its reality-tearing beam reaching out to consume Captain Hawthorne's ship. "Ghost leader to all ships," Hawthorne transmitted as his vessel was pulled into the energy vortex. "Remember us when you tell this story. Remember that humans never abandon those who need protection." The Shadow's edge vanished into the exotic energy field, taking with it one of humanity's best officers and his entire crew. But their sacrifice was not in vain. The weapon's discharge had created exactly the instability that Dr. Webb needed for his plan. "Admiral, the enemy weapon has destabilized local space," Webb announced. "If we can trigger a cascade overload now, we can destroy their entire fleet." Morrison looked around his bridge one final time. His ship was dying, his fleet was outnumbered, and the enemy showed no mercy to the innocent. But humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived through courage, sacrifice, and the refusal to give up when others needed protection. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Execute Ragnarok Protocol on my mark. For Earth, for the Valerians, and for every innocent being who needs someone to stand between them and the darkness." The human fleet began its final charge toward the heart of the enemy formation, their fusion cores building toward critical overload. In the depths of space, Deathworlders prepared to show the galaxy that some things were worth dying for, and that even the most powerful empire could be brought low by beings who refused to let evil triumph over good. ********. The human fleet charged toward the heart of the Hraketh formation like a spear of light cutting through darkness. Every ship glowed with the dangerous energy of overloading fusion cores, their crews committed to a final sacrifice that would save billions of innocent lives. Admiral Morrison gripped his command chair as the Invictus shuddered under massive enemy fire. Around him, his bridge crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had accepted death but refused to accept defeat. "Fusion core at 90% of critical threshold," reported Commander Park, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "Hull integrity at 20% and falling." Morrison watched the tactical display as his fleet closed the distance to General Throke's flagship. The enemy commander was throwing everything he had at the approaching human ships, but the Deathworlders refused to be stopped. "Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Rodriguez," Park announced. The image of Captain Elena Rodriguez appeared on the main screen. Her ship was also taking heavy damage, smoke filling her bridge as her crew fought to keep their systems operational. "Blake, I have an idea that might save some of our people," Rodriguez said quickly. "My science team has been analyzing the exotic energy readings from their star killer weapon. We think we can use our fusion overloads to create a controlled implosion instead of an explosion." Morrison felt a spark of hope. "Explain quickly, Elena." "If we detonate our cores in a specific sequence, we can create a gravitational wave that will crush their ships instead of vaporizing everything in the system. It might leave enough of our fleet intact to evacuate the Valerians." Dr. Webb looked up from his station with excitement. "Sir, the math works. If we can coordinate the detonations precisely, we can direct the gravitational effects away from friendly vessels." Morrison made his decision in the space between heartbeats. "All ships. New orders. Implement Rodriguez protocol. Detonate fusion cores in sequence based on fleet position. Outer ships first, working inward." Throughout the human fleet, commanders acknowledged the new orders with grim determination. They were still facing certain death, but now their sacrifice might save not only the Valerians, but some of their own people as well. "General," Throck watched the approaching human ships with growing unease. These creatures were not behaving like any enemy he had ever faced. They showed no fear, no hesitation, no desire for self-preservation that he could exploit. "All weapons, focus fire on the lead vessel," Throck commanded. "Destroy them before they can reach us." The space around the Invictus erupted with energy beams and missile explosions. The great ship's armor melted like ice under a blowtorch, but Admiral Morrison held his course steady toward the enemy flagship. Suddenly, the first human ship reached critical overload. Commander Cross aboard the destroyer Phantom looked around. Her bridge one final time before activating the final sequence. "For Earth," she whispered, and pressed the detonation control. The Phantom vanished in a flash of light that seemed to tear a hole in reality itself. But instead of the expected explosion, space around the ship began to collapse inward, creating a gravitational vortex that reached out with invisible fingers to crush nearby enemy vessels, one by one. Other human ships followed the Phantom into oblivion. Each detonation added to the growing gravitational distortion, turning the area around the Hraketh fleet into a maze of crushing forces that no ship could survive. "What are they doing?" Throck roared as he watched his ships being pulled apart. By forces his scientists could not explain, the Starkiller weapon fired again, its reality-tearing beam seeking to disrupt the gravitational cascade. But the exotic energies only made the situation worse, creating feedback loops that spread the destructive effects throughout the entire enemy formation. Admiral Morrison felt the Invictus being pulled toward the growing singularity his fleet had created. His ship was too damaged to escape, but he could see other human vessels breaking free from the gravitational trap and moving to safety. "All surviving ships, this is Morrison," he transmitted over the fleet communication system. Execute evacuation protocols. Get the Valerians out of here before the Hraketh send more fleets. Captain Rodriguez aboard the Titan fought her ship's controls as gravitational forces tried to drag her into the expanding zone of destruction. Admiral, we can still save you. Our tractor beams might be able to pull the Invictus clear. Morrison smiled sadly as he looked around his dying bridge. Negative, Elena. My ship is too damaged, and we need every minute to evacuate civilians. Tell Earth that we completed our mission. The communication ended as the Invictus was pulled into the gravitational maelstrom. Admiral Morrison and his crew vanished into the crushing forces they had created, their sacrifice ensuring that the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known would never harm innocents again. The gravitational cascade continued to spread through the Hraketh fleet like a plague of destruction. Ship after ship was crushed or torn apart by forces that grew stronger with each vessel they consumed. General Throke's flagship, the most powerful ship in the enemy fleet, fought desperately to escape the growing singularity. Emergency power! To engines, Throck commanded as his bridge shook around him. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. But it was too late. The exotic energies from multiple Starkiller discharges had created a runaway reaction that fed on itself, growing stronger with each ship it destroyed. The proud Hraketh fleet, which had conquered 17 star systems, was being devoured by forces beyond their understanding or control. Captain Rodriguez watched from a safe distance as the gravitational vortex consumed the last of the enemy ships. The space where 6,000 Hraketh vessels had floated in formation was now empty except for the slowly dissipating energy of collapsed matter. All ships report status, Rodriguez commanded as she took temporary command of the surviving. Human forces. The responses came in slowly, each one a mixture of triumph and grief. 23 human ships had survived the battle, but the cost had been enormous. The third battle fleet had been almost completely destroyed, along with most of the Ghost Fleet, and Admiral Morrison himself, on Valara Prime. Ambassador Carroll stood in his command center watching long-range sensors confirm what seemed impossible. The massive Hraketh fleet was gone, consumed by forces that his scientists could barely comprehend. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the surviving human ships," reported Captain Vex, his voice filled with wonder and gratitude. Captain Rodriguez's image appeared on the main screen, her face marked by exhaustion and grief but also by the quiet satisfaction of a mission completed. "Ambassador Kirill, this is Captain Rodriguez of the human colonial fleet. The immediate threat to your system has been eliminated. We are prepared to assist with evacuation operations if you believe more Hraketh forces are en route." Kirill felt tears streaming down his face as he tried to find words adequate to express his gratitude. "Captain, how can we ever repay what your people have done for us? You sacrificed everything to save beings you had never met." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment before answering. "Ambassador, we did not come here seeking payment or gratitude. We came because someone asked for help, and that is what neighbors do for each other." The evacuation operations began immediately. Human ships worked alongside the surviving Valerian vessels to move civilian populations to safer systems, while scout ships searched for any remaining Hraketh forces in the area. Dr. Webb, now serving aboard the Titan, worked frantically to analyze the gravitational effects they had created. His discoveries would change human understanding of physics and provide new defensive technologies for peaceful species throughout the galaxy. "Captain, the gravitational cascade has left permanent distortions in local space," Webb reported. "Any ship trying to enter this system will be detected long before it poses a threat. The Valerians now have a natural early warning system." 3 weeks later, representatives from dozens of peaceful species gathered on Valara Prime for an unprecedented conference. Word of humanity's sacrifice had spread throughout the galaxy, carried by traders and diplomats who could barely believe the stories they heard. Ambassador Kirill stood before the assembled delegates, his voice carrying to every corner of known space through faster-than-light communication networks. "Today, we have seen what happens when beings of courage stand against those who would destroy the innocent," Kirill announced. The humans from Earth asked for nothing in return for their sacrifice. They came because we called for help, and they stayed until the job was finished. In the audience, Captain Rodriguez sat quietly beside other surviving human officers. She had declined offers of medals and rewards, saying that her people had simply done what any decent beings would do when faced with such a situation. The galaxy now knows that evil does not go unopposed, Carol continued. When the strong prey upon the weak, there are those who will stand between them. The Deathworlders have shown us that the most dangerous beings in the universe can also be the most compassionate. On Earth, memorial services were held for Admiral Morrison and the thousands of other humans who had given their lives to protect people they had never met. But even in grief, humanity began preparing new fleets and training new crews, because the galaxy was vast and there would always be innocents who needed protection. The Hraketh Empire never recovered from the loss of their main fleet. Without their overwhelming military superiority, their subject species began to rebel, and their empire crumbled within a decade. But the memory of human courage spread to every corner of known space, carried by beings who had learned that sometimes the most feared warriors were also the most reliable protectors. Years later, when new threats emerged in distant systems, the call always went out to the same place. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships would appear carrying the blue and white banner of Earth, crewed by descendants of the Deathworld who understood that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves.